What's up, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube? Boogie2988 coming at you live once again. A random Twitter follower asked me to talk about grieving today, to talk about mourning, talk about the loss of a loved one, and I'd like to talk about that today if that's okay for him. But I haven't done a serious video in a while, and I think this is something we can all learn a little bit about. Because if you're born into a family, most of us are one mother, one father, two mothers, two fathers, an uncle, a grandparent, someone who's going to take care of us. At some point, you're going to have to bury somebody you love. And that's if you're lucky. Because sometimes we're going to bury our friends. And we may bury someone we love, someone we're dating, our best friends, our roommates, people that are very important to us. Death is definitely a part of life. And nobody really prepares you for that. Nobody ever really talks about it. Now, some of our parents will make the arrangements at first. Some of them will make sure the money's there with life insurance. Some will go to funeral directors. My mother, for example, had her funeral planned out from beginning to end. And I'm really glad that she did. But at the end of the day, nobody tells you how to deal with it on a personal level. And I've had to find out the hard way. In 2001, I buried my father. My dad died, was diagnosed with terminal cancer in 2001, and it took him several months to die, and he died at the beginning of September. And right after we buried him, I came home for a while and woke up to watch the planes hit the World Trade Center on 9/11. And then that was a very hard time for me, because not only was I mourning the loss of my father, but I was mourning the loss of a lot of different people who I never met, and some would even say the death of a large part of important part of America I was mourning. And here's what I learned then, and I applied it later when my mother died, is that there's not much you can do. And that feeling that you get in your heart and then your chest and in your head, and if you've never experienced that feeling, you will, and it's indescribable, but it's agony, it's emptiness, it's hollowness, it's pain, it's suffering, it's misery, it's loneliness, it's depression, it's every feeling in the world wrapped up into one. And you lament the loss of the potential you had with that person, you lament the loss of the love that you shared, and mostly you miss that person. And those feelings are persistent. And in all the things that you do, and all the things that you say, all the things that you try, it's hard to not think about that person you just lost, specifically when it's somebody as close as your mother or your father, brother, sister, or loved one. So what I learned was to distract myself. What I learned was to fake it until I made it. I had heard that advice many, many times about different other things, but I didn't want to get out of bed. I didn't want to get up and do things. I didn't want to go see a movie. Why watch a movie that I've wanted to see when I'm wasting it? Because I can't enjoy it. Why play a game that I've wanted to play when I can't enjoy it right now? I can't enjoy anything. I'm miserable. And what I learned is that you have to go through the actions of your life. You have to stay busy. You have to move on. You have to do the things you would normally do. You have to distract yourself from the misery, and you have to try to be happy. And even if you're not, you can't lay at home. You can't put your feet up. You can't stay in bed all day. You can't just lay there and wait to die and wait to join them. And a lot of people do that. And when my mother passed, that was the worst agony I'd ever been in my life. And I think at first I began to make the mistake of trying to bury those feelings, to try to not acknowledge them, to not feel them. And whereas I've told you to distract yourself, I've told you to stay busy, I've told you to live your life as normal, when it comes time to let those emotions take hold, when it comes time for those feelings to bubble up and to make you stay home one day, and to make you cry your eyes out, or to make you rage against the world and throw a mug against the wall, or whatever, you've got to feel those feelings. And I worked through those feelings when my mother passed with my good friend Timothy, my good friend Adam. Adam was instrumental in keeping me alive because I was so miserable. I couldn't even think of a future. I couldn't even think of my YouTube channel. I couldn't think of anything. I occasionally turn on the camera and I could barely be creative. I could barely do anything. I could barely try. And if it wasn't for Adam, I'm not sure I'd be alive today. And that's my third piece of advice. Find someone you care about. Find someone you love. Find someone who, maybe even if they don't know the person that you lost, but that cares about you. Find that person and rely on them, because you're going to need help getting through that process. And it's especially difficult when someone like a wife or a brother or a roommate or somebody that you're used to relying on every day is gone. You need to reach out to your friends. You need to reach out to your family. You need to be around people, you know. And that's really the big three. That's how I've gotten through it. It's the things that I think everyone should know. You know, be around other people. Own up to the feelings you feel. And most importantly, live your life, you know. Don't let that missing person, don't let that person, that grief, that misery, don't let that steal your life today. And most importantly, and the easiest way to remember that, and to me, is to think about who the person that's missing, the person that's gone, the person you've lost. Think about how they'd want you to live your life. Think about what they'd want you to do. Would they want you laying in bed? Would they want you crying your eyes out? Would they want you just being miserable? Would they want you sitting at their grave 24 hours a day? No, they want you to get out there and enjoy what life you've got left. Because that's the most important lesson of all. The one that we all seem to forget. Because in our heads, in our hearts, we all think we're going to live forever. You know, it's hard to accept our own death. It's hard to accept the inevitability of the fact that you and I will shuffle off this mortal coil one day. But one day, the people around us, the people we love, the people we care about, they're going to have to bury us. You're going to have to mourn us. You guys are going to have to mourn me. And I'm going to end up mourning some of you. And that's the reality of it. And it's important. It's important to make the most of the time you have left. Because, you know, 3 days after you bury your mother, you may get hit by a bus. So, you know, morbid and sad and awful. But someone wrote me in to talk about, wrote to me to ask me to talk about this topic, and I owed him one. So I hope this helps.